But I'm also joined, I'm glad to say, by Leon Panetta, the former director of the CIA and former Defense Secretary in America. Mr. Panetta, thank you very much indeed for joining me again on the show. We appreciate it. We've talked before about Ukraine. I saw that President Zelensky was at Davos, he was talking to the people at Davos, saying this has to end. But how do you see this ending?
Well, I think it's very important at a critical point in this war, and it is a critical point, because what appears to be a stalemate right now on the ground, in many ways I'm concerned that it may favor the Russians and the aggressor. It'll allow them to dig in, to reinforce, and to prepare for an offensive. So I think it's very important now for the Allies to provide the weapons that are essential to the Ukrainians. Heavy tanks, missiles, air defense, all of that ought to be provided now in an effort to try to give them the ability to get the edge on an offensive against the Russians. This cannot be allowed just simply to drag on. That's not going to help either party, very frankly, in terms of trying to achieve some kind of ending to this war.
Britain is sending 12 tanks, we know. Others will be doing the same. I mean, there's a very fine line, isn't there, between supporting Ukraine in this manner and actively engaging in this war. Is it a line that the Russians may deliberately blur? Are they trying to indicate now that they may widen the war if the West continues to support Ukraine in a more direct manner?
You know, for a year, Russia has threatened all kinds of consequences. That's the way they behave. That's the way Putin behaves. And frankly, we've gone ahead, regardless of those threats, and provided the weapons and provided the support that is essential to the Ukrainians. And I think we have to continue to do that. Look, the fundamental issue is that we are fighting by supporting Ukraine and the Ukrainians who are fighting this war. It's one of the most important wars of the 21st century, because in many ways, the outcome of this war will tell us a great deal about what ultimately happens to democracies in the 21st century. So we have a lot riding on making sure that Ukraine is successful in this war.
There was a hideous attack a few days ago in Dnipro on a residential block with gruesome videos. I want to play a little bit of one just to indicate the horror of what is actually happening on the ground there.
Пизда, ля. Пизда, ля.
I mean, this is in the middle of a sovereign democratic country's city, and over 40 people were killed in an attack on a residential building. I mean, Mr. Panetta, when you see something like that, what are we seeing here? Are these just war crimes?
I think what we're seeing is the Russians very clearly indicating that they're not winning this war. And as a result, they're going after innocent men, women, and children and conducting these kinds of horrific attacks against innocent individuals. For me, it's a reflection that Russia is not winning, but losing this war. And I think as a result of that, the Allies really need air defense systems. We need longer range missiles in order to make sure that Russia, their will to continue to fight is broken. Russia's trying to hope that somehow the will of the West may break. We have to basically provide the support system to the Ukrainians to break the will of the Russians.
Yeah, I completely agree. There are two more things I wanted to just to get your perspective on. One is Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, has run into trouble diplomatically now in this country from his base in America with this book he's written in which he talked about killing 25 Taliban in Afghanistan. And he described what people have accused him of being of dehumanizing the enemy by describing them as chess pieces, not human beings, to be removed from a board. And it sparked a predictable reaction from the Taliban, exploiting what he said. But it also has now inspired a reaction from Iran, who executed a British Iranian on trumped-up suggestions he was a spy, and have issued a statement off the back of what Harry said in return for the criticism about the execution, to say the British regime, whose royal family member sees the killing of 25 innocent people as removal of chess pieces and has no regrets over the issue, and those who turn a blind eye to this war crime are in no position to preach others on human rights. What's your view about that? Was Harry very misguided to put into a book, sold as many as it has done, an exact number of Taliban he killed and to describe them as chess pieces?
Well, Piers, based on my experience, both in the military and as Secretary of Defense, I have to tell you that the strongest warriors I knew in battle were those who focused on the mission and not how many individuals on the other side that they killed. They focused on whether or not the mission was accomplished. And I think Prince Harry would have done better to focus on the missions that he was involved with rather than counting the number of dead. So I think in this situation, obviously, Iran is not a country with a strong human rights record. So whatever they say, I think we're not to really pay a lot of attention to. But I do think that he could have handled this better as a soldier.
Would it be sensible, albeit he's already said this, but would it be sensible for future editions of the book, because they're reprinting as we speak, and given the volume that it's selling, would it be sensible for him to maybe issue a statement to calm things down, to express some regret over putting a number to his Taliban kill tally and to call them chess pieces, and to actually remove that part from the book?
Yeah, I think that when you start to detail how many have been killed, then in some ways that becomes the issue. And what I'm offended by, frankly, is the distortion of focusing on numbers of killed rather than the mission that he was involved with, which I think was a strong mission, an important mission to go after the Taliban and those who were involved in the attack on 9/11. This was an important mission, and that's what ought to be focused on. So if in some way he could kind of rewrite this or include the missions that he was involved in without referring to the number of people that were killed, I think that would frankly represent a fairer description of what he was involved with in his service. I'm sure he performed well. I'm sure he did his service to his country. And I think that's important. But I think saying the number of people that were killed, frankly, detracts both from the mission and from the service that he provided.
Yeah, I agree. And finally, big story has been brewing in America in the last few days about President Biden and classified documents have been found at his home. Obviously, we had this with President Trump, an ongoing investigation into that. You were obviously worked under the Obama-Biden administration. What is your view of this? I mean, is there any qualitative difference between the two presidents here and how they've mishandled classified documents? And what should happen to President Biden?
Well, there is a concern here. When you're dealing with classified documents, the reality is that these documents require that they be handled carefully, that they be logged in, and that they be secure. And for whatever reason, that did not happen. It didn't happen with President Trump in a very reckless way, frankly, in terms of the numbers of the documents that are involved here. And to the same extent, President Biden made a mistake here. And there was a mistake either on his part or on the staff's part for not being able to secure those documents. So I think the appointment of a special counsel in both cases is appropriate. We need to find out what happened. We need to make sure that it never happens again. And so it does detract from, frankly, President Biden's effort to try to say that what President Trump did was wrong. The fact is what he did is not correct either. So both are going to have to face the consequences for the way they mishandled classified documents.
Leo Panetta, it's always great to have you on the programme because you always answer questions honestly and directly, and I really appreciate it. It's a rarity in public life these days, so please come back again soon. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Piers. Good to talk to you.
All the best.